Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. While surfing the internet, I stumbled upon a photo of my fiancé's ex-girlfriend. It was a photo of a pair of slender manicured hands cutting up a durian, accompanied by the phrase, "I'll never say no to you." I recognized those hands. They belonged to my future husband, Travis. It was strange, though. He absolutely loved the smell of apples, and now here he was willingly cutting one for someone else. I had to ask myself, was there a chance he would break his own rules for someone else, someone other than me? While scrolling through Instagram, I came across a new post by Tiana, his ex. It seemed ordinary until I noticed the caption, "He'll never say no to me." Startled, I clicked on the photo and gave it a closer look. This truly was a man's hand, and a beautiful one indeed. Slender fingers, defined knuckles, and meticulously trimmed nails. He wore a Richard Mille watch. His veins were slightly raised due to the force supplied while carving the durian. Tiana, his ex, was a minor celebrity who regularly shared interesting tidbits about her everyday life on social media, and had a significant following. Fans delighted in her posts, sending well wishes and congratulations. Amidst all the speculation and praise from her followers, she only responded with a coy, "He's just a good friend." This post felt like a punch in the gut. I knew those hands all too well. They belonged to Travis, my soon-to-be husband. The watch was a gift from me, but our engagement ring was conspicuously missing. Was he willingly engaging in the task he once abhorred? I remember when we were newly dating. He picked me up for a date and grimaced when he smelled the durian I had just eaten. Normally a gentle soul, his face had darkened. "Did you eat durian?" he asked indignantly. His harsh tone sucked the joy out of the moment. After that day, I swore never to eat durian in front of him again. Feeling betrayed, I opened our chat history. Just 4 hours earlier, we were discussing the plan to select our wedding photos later that evening. Travis was a surgeon and had been unexpectedly called in for emergency surgery. I had wished him well, reminding him not to skip dinner and not to overwork himself. Now it was 11 p.m., and he hadn't returned yet or messaged me. Feeling my heart drop, I sent him a message. My fingers were surprisingly calm, but my insides were in turmoil. "Where are you?" I texted him but got no reply. Travis isn't the quick-to-respond type. He often neglected my messages, giving reasons like he was too busy or simply forgot. I've always supported him, considering he is a doctor who's often preoccupied with saving lives. But this time he wasn't at the hospital. He was with Tiana. Tiana was Travis's ex-girlfriend who left years ago due to objections from his family. I knew about their past relationship, and according to Travis, they had ended things long ago, and he began to move forward. I somehow ended up peeping into her weblog, and I noticed that despite being apart for years, Tiana's return to the US had ignited their connection. By midnight, Travis was still not back. The worry grew too strong, and I decided to go through his things in his study room, something I never did considering our trust and respect for each other. But now, I was desperate to understand the extent of his feelings for Tiana. I found an external hard drive in his drawer and connected it to my computer. It was full 1 terabyte of photos, love letters, memories, even videos of Tiana, all from his perspective, capturing each smile and frown, even some funny, flattering moments. Every gesture, every glance was lavished with emotion, something I never felt from our robotic posed couple photos, except for our wedding photos. When we officially started dating, I asked him for selfies to share in our friend circle as a grand announcement of our relationship. Disinterestedly, he had dismissed my request as juvenile and boring. The most shocking of all reveals was a video titled "Gluttonous Piggy," showing Tiana eating merrily inside his car. Travis had a strict rule against eating in his car, not wanting to risk his neat interior getting dirty. Yet there she was, breaking the rule with a big smile on her face. I felt a pang of sadness, realizing that he wasn't incapable of sweet words and affection. He just hadn't chosen me to share them with. The affectionate messages and sweet gestures were reserved solely for Tiana. The realization was painfully clear. He really didn't love me, not one bit. He never said no to Tiana, but with me he stuck strictly to his boundaries, unwilling to compromise. I assumed it was a part of his personality, but in Tiana's presence, it seemed he could break any boundary. In the grand scheme of things, Tiana was his choice while I was just an option. Our little affair paled compared to their profound love. I felt my heart sink. I was not any less attractive, educated, or sophisticated than Tiana, but that didn't matter when it came to love. Love had no reasons, and now I had none from him. My heart was stingy. My chest tightened as I mindlessly went through each photo, each video. Travis loved her, but he was my fiancé. I fell back into my chair, tired as the severe cold of the realization gripped my heart. The sound of the door opening echoed in the room. Glancing at the clock, it was 3 a.m. Travis had finally come back. As he passed by the study room, he noticed me sitting at the desk and walked in. "Haven't you gone to bed yet?" he asked casually. My eyes silently moved towards the hard drive, which he soon caught sight of. His expression tightened. "Why were you going through my hard drive?" His anger was visible. "Relax, I was just randomly looking. I didn't delete anything," I replied, resting it back in the drawer. Travis stared at me in disbelief. "Where were you tonight?" I asked calmly. He hesitated for a moment before stating he was late due to surgery. As sorry and asked me to sleep, I took his left hand in mine. "Where's your ring, Travis?" He looked at his hand, paused, murmuring apologetically about removing it for sanitization before the operation, leaving it back at the office due to the delayed schedule. His lies were easy to spot. I was amazed at how much he had changed. "Our engagement is over, Travis." His expression altered profoundly. "Are you serious, Jane?" I nodded, firm in my decision. I always thought our relationship was a two-way street, but it turns out it was only me striving to make it work. Seeing the content in the hard drive, my passionate intention for a future with Travis suddenly disappeared. Whether I wanted it or not, I found myself surrendering to reality because a little hurt now is better than more pain later. "What's wrong, Jane?" he asked, gritting his teeth. "Breaking up," I repeated. "We're ending it, Travis." He was at a loss for words. He questioned me, trying to find a reason for my sudden change. I looked into his eyes and nodded with certainty that hit hard. Travis was taken aback. After a pause, he stared at me, anger clouding his face. He banged the table, surprising me. I stayed put, watching him lose his calm. A reality check hit with a bang that the person I so deeply loved, adored, and overlooked was a stranger to me now. I had given my all to Travis only to be repaid with a deceitful lie. Suddenly it all felt meaningless. The Travis I once knew was nowhere to be found. I knew better than to argue with someone so ignorant of his mistake. The content in that hard drive is all in the past. "I have loved Tiana, which you're very aware of," Travis said, raising his voice and picking up the hard drive, looking at it with affection. "Why do you require to create an unnecessary hassle out of it? Not everything has to revolve around Tiana." His words echoed in the silent room. I looked at the hard drive Travis had picked up. After seeing those contents, I realized that his love for someone was drastically different from what he had shown me. I gathered my thoughts and spoke up. "Travis, if you can't let go of your past love, you should not play with people's lives." Travis looked puzzled as he examined me, bored with it again. "What wrong have I done this time?" His frustration was evident. Again I smirked, looking at the hard drive in his hands. It unveiled what I was blind to for so many years. To think that such an indifferent man like Travis could love someone that vehemently shocked me. His getting married and having children is life's inevitable destiny to him. It's not about loving or having profound feelings for someone. It's just a necessity of life that needs to be pursued mindlessly. Well, why not? If I don't find anyone who respects me and treats me with genuine love, I'd rather stay single, I replied bluntly. Both my parents were taken aback. "You're just saying that now, Jane. You are too young to understand. You will regret it when you get older." They tried to make me understand their perspective. I was not convinced, so what if I regret it later? It's my life, my regret. I don't see why it bothers you so much. I was firm. The room fell silent. Their faces mirrored a mix of shock, anger, and disappointment. After a moment of silence, my father replied, "If you are so eager to break your engagement, I won't stop you. This is your life after all. You should know what's best for you." At that moment, I felt relieved. As much as their traditional mindset irritated me, deep down I knew they respected my individuality and my decisions, something I was grateful for. After much consideration, Travis and I decided to end our relationship. We made an agreement to remain friends and maintain a professional front at work. Despite the stressful circumstances, breaking up was, in a sense, a sweet release. Travis's attitude towards me didn't change much post-breakup. We continued working together, being part of group activities. Whenever I needed help, he was there for me. But there was one big difference. I felt liberated from the unfair relationship that was suffocating me. I had my freedom back. Ironically, breaking up with Travis was the best decision I made for the relationship and for myself. It took me some time, but I finally moved on. My journey from scorned fiancé to a loving friend was not easy, but it helped me grow. I understood what self-love meant, and I decided to dedicate my life to finding real love. The love that respects, cares, and values you. The love that doesn't suffocate you but gives you wings to fly. My father insisted on the marriage alliance with that family, claiming it to be a good business move. I protested, but my objections fell on deaf ears. "Honey, you've been away from home for years. You do not know Travis anymore. He has matured a lot," my father argued. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. It was awkward, yes, but during our meeting I was pleasantly surprised. For one, Travis had grown up to be a good-looking man, tall with handsome features and the same icy blue eyes that captivated me before. His demeanor was also different, more calm and controlled. He was indeed a different person, a mature, responsible man, a top surgeon in the country. Our conversations during the meeting were warm and friendly, unlike our adolescent bantering. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his firm convictions reflected in his words. I began to see him in a new light, not as the man who prioritized his ex over me, but as a man who had learned from his past and grown. I remember asking him, "Why did you agree to meet me, Travis?" He looked at me, his eyes softened, and he said, "I thought it was the right time. Life isn't about running away. It's about facing it, dealing with the present, and planning for the future." His words struck a chord in me. Maybe this could work, I thought. Maybe we had both matured enough to face each other again. After all, we already had a foundation as friends. The memory of him saving my life from drowning had left an indelible mark. In my heart, I agreed to marry him, thinking that life had given us a second chance to rectify the mistakes of our past. But alas, time proved me wrong yet again. His priority was still not us. It was the same Sam, his past love. He was never completely mine. Those sweet musings of second chance true love turned out to be naive. But I am not the same naive girl anymore. Life has taught me that love isn't about humiliation or tolerating deceit. It's about respect, care, and trust. It's about having an equal say and giving equal effort. It's about choosing someone who chooses you. So I choose to walk away. I choose to find my true love, my real happiness. The journey might be tough and lonely, but I have now learned to embrace solitude over false companionship. After returning from abroad, I attended several matchmaking sessions. I assumed this one would be like the rest, but my assumptions were turned on their head when I pushed the door open and was confronted with Travis. My heart pounded ferociously against my chest, and memories of the past swirled vividly in my mind. At 28, Travis had grown out of his adolescent coldness. He was sure and more relaxed. Our relationship swiftly took a serious turn, and I was over the moon. I poured my heart and soul into it, believing in a bright future. However, those childhood seeds of love, so deep in my heart, were uprooted by a bitter revelation. Travis still prioritized his ex-lover over me, making me feel ignored and deceived. His attempts to pacify me by saying he was too busy were nothing more than excuses. At one point, he even presumed my wrath would subside after cooling down and agreed to pick me up. He thought my resentment was temporary, but he was wrong. By that time, hurt and betrayal had already consumed me. I remember waking up to see Travis's snapshots with his ex-lover on her blog posts. It was apparent to everyone that they were still profoundly involved. Anticipating the worst, I decided to take control of the situation and confront his lies once and for all. In the evening, Travis showed up at my apartment, offering to take me home. I turned away, ignoring his pleas. My attempts to disconnect were faced with resistance from my own family, especially my mother. She slyly hinted at her fondness for Travis and her disapproval of our separation. "Don't be like this," she pleaded. He is a good man. None of her words made sense to me. We had already parted ways and there was no turning back. However, what followed was a grim parade of Travis's sneaky attempts to reconcile. His actions were a stark reminder that he was still hung up on his past love. I felt like a substitute, a rebound that Travis banked on. I made up my mind to confront the situation head-on. I had decided to call it quits. I remember the countless times Maya, his ex, had fallen ill, and immediately Travis was at her side as her doctor. Is he planning to pick up each patient individually? I questioned, feeling a rush of anger. I had decided to call it off to break free from a love that was never truly mine. That wasn't reciprocated. Despite our breakup, Travis and I still had to conduct business meetings, which I found difficult. His father, who was still oblivious to our split, praised our work. I decided to reveal the truth to him, displaying the blog posts that dashed all my hopes of reconciliation. Needless to say, he looked surprised as he scrolled through Maya's blog. So she's back, huh? He wondered aloud, defying our contract. She truly is audacious. His exclamations reminded me of a cliché romance plot where the main leads are separated due to family objections, and years later, the female lead returns to reclaim her love. I quickly dismissed the dreadful thought. There was no way I was going to settle for the secondary role in their so-called love story. Throughout the day, the silence on Travis's part was filled with frustration, betrayal, and regret. He sent me a few texts asking when I was returning, which I chose to ignore. That night, I received a friend request from Maya on Instagram. She apologized and attempted to explain her situation, but it only infuriated me more. You can't cure your sickness abroad and need surgery here, I retorted sarcastically, and conveniently, it has to be at Travis's hospital. How do you explain getting so close to him at personal events? She fell silent and I left her on read. I was done with their games. Later that evening, Travis confronted me again at my house. Why aren't you replying to my texts? He asked. I simply shrugged and responded, I don't feel like it. Despite our heated argument, he somehow managed to convince me to join him and my parents for dinner at a newly opened restaurant. Throughout dinner, while Travis and my parents carried out a cheerful conversation, all I had inside me was a boiling cauldron of unexpressed anger and a feeling of betrayal. Yes, I was caught up in a twisted tale of love, one where I was neither a heroine nor a villain. I was just an overlooked character taken for granted. Deep down I was hurt, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. My parents and Travis conversed in high spirits while all I could do was mechanically smile from time to time. Travis was suddenly preoccupied with a phone call and excused himself from the table. Sorry friends, I need to rush to the hospital. There's an emergency, he explained, conveniently forgetting to finish his meal. You're going to meet your ex, aren't you? I mocked him, seeing through his transparent excuse. His face hardened into a stern expression. Maya has just returned. She needs medical attention, and as a doctor, it's my duty. I immediately shot back at him. We'll accompany you then. Let's see if you're really performing surgery or visiting Maya. The reason I was assured of his foul play was that I had deliberately posted a picture of Travis mingling with my parents just minutes ago and allowed only Maya to view it. Her immediate reaction wasn't surprising. She claimed to be unwell and in dire need of medical supervision. My mother's expression turned stern. As usual, I waved it off, saying people's lives are more important. Let him go and attend and we will adjust. I simply smirked at her mother's logic. The following day, I visited Travis's office with some papers, excusing it as a necessity for our regular meetings. His father, however, insisted on discussing our upcoming wedding preparations, which made me scoff internally. I presented him with the amended business contract between our companies, which now had lesser benefits for his conglomerate. His father's confusion and astonishment were deeply satisfying. I reminded him of my separation from Travis and his involvement with Maya, making sure to drive my point home. I rebuffed his consoling attempts, firmly standing by my decision. What do you suggest I do to retain our beneficial contract? He asked, desperation evident in his voice. I simply expect fairness. I am determined to end this engagement, but if your company still wishes to collaborate with us, let the contract be negotiated on equal terms. I concluded, leaving him speechless. Never again did I plan to be taken for granted and underestimated. My journey wasn't devoid of love, but I had learned to prioritize self-respect over everything else. Travis and his family were nothing but a bitter chapter of my past, one that I had closed indefinitely. Maya was welcome to handle the drama that unfolded with the family. After all, I had a life of peace and self-worth to reclaim. I moved to an apartment downtown. As I entered, Travis was already packing his things. His appearance was unkempt, his beard unshaven, and he looked utterly miserable. "So you're kicking me out?" he questioned, sounding somewhat defeated. I did not respond, instead turning my back on him to organize my belongings. But he continued pleading for one more chance, apologizing for his misdeeds, promising to right his wrongs. "Maya was a mistake," he claimed. "I love you and I want to be with you." But instead of feeling sympathy or reconsideration, I surprised myself by the wave of indifference washing over me. "Our principles do not align. I am adamant in my decisions and wish for you to respect it," I said. In an attempt to elicit empathy, he tried to justify his actions. Maya was sick and needed medical attention. I cut him off. "You consistently prioritize her over me. I won't allow you to vilify me for being upset about that. I am not one of your patients, and you have no right to convince me of what I should and shouldn't feel." My voice assumed a steady tone, devoid of the emotional turmoil I expected myself to feel. "I'd rather be single than to be in a relationship where I am constantly overlooked and undervalued. We're done, Travis." Over the next few days, Travis flooded me with apologetic messages, calls, and emails. I did my best to ignore him, focusing instead on reshaping my life without him. He kept showing up at my workplace, but I had him escorted away every time. The one thing I clearly understood was that standing up for myself was the best thing I could do. I owed that to myself. I deserved respect and commitment in a relationship, nothing less. As I walked down the path of self-discovery, Travis was merely a memory of what love should not look like. I had reclaimed my worth, my confidence, and my life. I knew that I was capable of being loved the right way, and I wouldn't settle for anything less. I protested, dismayed by the flood of calls and messages he sent at 2 in the morning. Unable to sleep, I decided to answer his call. His speech was slurred, indicating he was intoxicated. He was tearful, desperate, and emotional, but instead of sympathy, I felt merely annoyance. "We're over, Travis. I don't want anything else to do with you," I remember saying, disconnecting the call. Months later, I received a wedding invitation. Not for me, but for Travis and Maya. It hit me harder than I thought it would. I found myself enraged. The audacity of it all. He was marrying the woman he cheated on me with. It felt like a slap in the face, a deep betrayal. Yet at the same time, I felt a sense of relief washing over me. I was finally free from a failed relationship and a man who did not respect or love me as he should have. He didn't waste any time showing off their relationship. Photos of them flooded the internet, praises of their perfect love filling up the comment sections. It was painful. A large part of me was still healing from our breakup, but I knew it was time for me to move forward. Not long after, I received a message from the nearby photo studio about the wedding pictures that had been developed and were ready for pickup. With a humorless laugh, I replied that they could dispose of the photos since we'd called off the wedding indefinitely. Work became my solace. I kept myself ridiculously busy to the point of exhaustion. It was a distraction, but it was also my way of finding my identity back, the part of me I lost while I was with Travis. When news reached me that Travis and Maya were expecting a child, initially I felt a pang of pain, but it soon passed. This was their life now, and I was just a bystander. As much as the betrayal hurt me, I had no say in their lives anymore, and it was time to let go. Taking a deep breath, I acknowledged that this was going to be the start of a new chapter in my life. No more obsessing over past relationships, no more heartache. It was time for me to take control of my life, career, and happiness. And for those who did me wrong, they weren't worth my time or my thoughts. Whatever might come their way was no longer a concern of mine. I was ready to close this chapter and move forward, for I had better things to look forward to. I retorted, annoyed by what was happening. When the auction day came, she showed up. She was radiant and confident in her red festive dress. This was a different Maya. She was no longer hiding anything. Our company, ABC Corp., intends to participate in the auction. Pleased to meet you, she extended a hand. I shook it, offering a brief acknowledgement. Rumors had already spread that Maya started working in Travis Company ABC Corp. Was reportedly fighting tooth and nail to win contracts. Clients whom I had connected with sooner were instead persuaded by her charming persona and absurdly low prices. I stood my ground, refusing to devalue my work, which indeed caught the eye of the critics. It wasn't long until her blatant and reckless attainments started causing a significant amount of distress. One day, ABC Corp came begging, needing my expertise to save their derailing flower project. Seeing this forced me into a sudden realization. They were not my responsibility anymore. They pleaded if I could supply a shipment of spare parts for the flower project urgently, and I decided to give them my price. Oh, was it a steep one? Travis' father was furious and tried to reason with my father about the ridiculous amount of money I demanded. Let's not forget that Travis saved your daughter's life once. Oliver tried to defend this seemingly disheartening act, but my mother, an equally formidable woman, retorted fiercely, Travis did save our daughter's life once, and we compensated more than enough for that. Our company has been supplying spare items for your projects at a lower cost for how many years again? The disagreement ended our long-standing familial relationships. Slowly, clients started returning to my company, realizing the low-caliber work Maya was turning out for ABC Corporation. Relations with Flower were reestablished, and they turned to me for their urgent needs. In the end, Maya's actions were a talking point in the industry. Even her company couldn't stand her unreasonable tactics and forced her into maternity leave, much to the delight of the critics. Seeing Maya's downfall, I couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. After all, she deserved it for thinking she could easily outdo and bypass the norms of the industry, especially when she had me as an adversary, a reference point. Travis had always praised me. Unfortunately, Maya wasn't a fan of that and figured that if she could just swing a few transactions my way and compete on price, she could surpass me. It was only her miscalculations that prevented her from doing so. Once Travis Company ABC Corp. Was in danger of filing for bankruptcy, they had piles of debt and barely any assets left to execute. Even their property was at stake. Eventually, Maya and Travis separated with a multi-million debt and a lawsuit on their hands. The family was in shambles. Their house was sold off, their factory was under restriction, and they were barely scraping by with odd jobs. Reminiscing about these events, Travis approached me one day when I returned to the country after several months. He looked tired and much older than his 30 years. His once full head of hair was streaked with white. "Nah, can we talk?" he asked nervously. I was silent. He took it as a sign to continue. "I just want to apologize," Travis confessed, swallowing hard. "What I regret the most is not treating you well. I know it's too late now, but I wanted to say this. I hope you can forgive me." I refused to respond and left. Not long after that, a violent incident occurred at Travis Hospital. Apparently, he was attacked right after he came out of the surgery room. The attacker admitted that he was acting on Maya's orders. She too got arrested soon afterward. I, together with a few friends who grew up together, visited him. He looked frail and pale but managed a weak smile. "It seems I can't hold a scalpel anymore," he said, raising his bandaged right hand faintly. We tried to comfort him and tell him it wasn't the end of the world. Yes, being alive is enough," our friends echoed. But I still remembered the 13-year-old boy standing proud in front of us, declaring boldly, "I want to become a doctor." That ambitious kid is long gone, and in his place is a middle-aged man confined to his hospital bed. He might have changed a lot, but his dream of becoming a doctor had not wavered until now. But now he could not even lift his scalpel anymore. To him, this could have been worse than dying. A deep sorrow welled up within me, even stronger than when I found his old hard drive at the prison. I was furious at our sight and started yelling at Travis and then at me. After she was done, Travis just sighed and advised her to control herself. Afterwards, I heard that Travis sent a petition to the court, but it didn't help much. Maya was sentenced to 5 years in prison. On the day of her verdict, Travis called me. He was silent for a while before he said, "Nah, you're a good woman. I wanted to bid you farewell." Then he added that he didn't know where he was going, but he would follow whatever life had in store for him. and then he hung up. I couldn't get hold of him again. A few days later, a news article online reported that a man was swept away by a whirlpool, and his body was washed up on the beach. The man was identified as Travis, a renowned doctor. People believed it to be an accident and expressed their grief over his loss, but I knew better. It was a choice, his choice. He once told me that he had almost drowned when he was a boy, and that a doctor passing by had saved his life. That was when he decided to become a doctor. For Travis, maybe returning to the sea was his final wish. With a heavy heart, I read the news and whispered a goodbye to him. Safe travels. May you continue to pursue your dreams in your next life. Live true to yourself and be worthy of others. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to support me. Thank you.